Welcome to another episode of the Halal Gap. My name is Sikandar. I'm your co-host, and I'm joined as always by
Sophia Alani, your other co-host.
I just realized I do a hand motion, even though this is an audio
I'm also
platform.
on the other
That's
side
okay.
of you on this
Yeah,
video.
hey, that's fine. As always, we also have behind the mic mixing this up for us, Hamada. Hamada, where you at?
What's up?
One word as always. Love it. We have a very special guest for you guys today. Hope you enjoy today's episode.
You might recognize our next guest from our 2019 Mosquers Film Festival, where she was our incredible and hilarious host. She is a Toronto-based comedian who has opened for Maz Jobrani, Ken Jeong, Beth Stelling, James Adomian, and who has performed at several comedy festivals internationally. She just did a taping for CBC Gem's New Wave of Stand-Up and will be doing another CBC taping at the Halifax Comedy Festival and Winnipeg Comedy Festivals later this year. She has also given a TEDx talk about her emotional journey in comedy titled Why People-Pleasing is Hurting You. A clinical engineer by day and stand-up comedian by night, she is the star of her own namesake documentary, Selma, in which she explores different facets of her identity as a stand-up comic and a biomedical engineer, two very niche and male-dominated industries. This documentary is featured at several international film festivals, including the Toronto Shorts Film Festival and Women's International Film Festival. Please welcome back to the Halal Gap, Salma Hindy.
Woo!
Hi!
Woo! Hello! How have you been?
I'm well. Thank you for reading my entire memoir. The whole library.
You can't cut anything out of that. Everything is so important, you know?
Right? I was like, it's literally like 6 days long. I was like, oh man. Other people like who've actually achieved things, like they'll go up and they'll just say like one credit, like check out their Instagram. And versus me, this is how you know, because I like try to overcompensate with all of my like accomplishments. But yeah.
Hey man, you've done some pretty cool stuff. So we could have cut it out if we didn't like it, but like Sikandar said, it was all too good.
True. Thank you.
How's quarantine life treating you? We've all been following along your Instagram journeys, but how's it been?
Yeah, it's been good. So I feel like I started to quarantine a little bit before like the cities started to like sort of like shut down and lock down and stuff like that. Where like I told my boss, like everyone at work, I remember I was like telling my white coworker, I was like, oh my God, martial law is going to take over. Like, everything's going to shut down. Like, the army's going to run the country. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, you're ridiculous. And then, like, 2 weeks later, he texts me. He's like, oh my God, you were right about it. I was like, this is what you're going to say about Islam to me on the Day of Judgment. Okay, so you might as well just submit. From now, I'm just warning you. And he's like, yes, you're right, Salma. But I started quarantining before like my work told us to work from home and stuff, and to the point where like my other coworkers were like, "Whoa, she's so dramatic." I was like, "I don't care. I'm gonna work from home." So I took my stuff, and then 2 days later they started to announce like everybody work from home and stuff like that. But before I quarantined, like everything was still open, like all the shops, all the restaurants, like malls, just everything was open, right? And so it's kind of weird because anytime I leave now, I'm like, oh, I'm sure everything is just as it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I keep thinking it's what it is right before I quarantined. But it's very much not. Like, everything is closed. Everything is just like dead land. Like, it's kind of scary. I don't know. How are you guys finding it?
Same. It's a weird world out there. You're right though, because like even if you could go out, there's nothing to do. Like everything is closed, so you might as well stay in, guys.
And the things you can do, like everyone else is also doing. So you like try to go for a walk, but it's like, how do you keep the distance? Because like everyone's going out for a walk because that's all there is.
Yeah,
it's super weird.
I went to the beach with my roommate a couple of days ago, which is so weird because the first time I went to the beach was in the pandemic. I was like, this is so strange, but also such an on-brand thing for me to do. And she was running like 20K as per usual, and I was like sitting down on the bench, also as per my brand. And these like people, anyone who passed by me was like desperate to like make eye contact and like talk to me. And I think they were talking to me, but I just had my headphones on, and I was like, oh man, people are out here being that like socially deprived. Like they're like, please, any stranger. And white people are already normally like that, right? But like it was like extra this time.
So
So
true.
did you make any new friends or?
I guess like no, like I just said hi to the people who were walking past me, and then yesterday I was sitting on a bench, like, and then this like older man walked past me. I could just see like he was literally like timing it perfectly when he was like exactly what step in front of me he was gonna take to then look at me and like make the eye contact. Like he was like he was doing all the calculations of like when he should lock eyes with me, and then when he did, he was like literally like 3 feet apart. But I was like, it's okay, sir, I will let you have this. But this is how socially deprived everyone is. But it's really cool.
Yeah, it is a weird world. It is a weird world where we're living in right now, where I think at the same time, what do you think is going to happen after? I've been asking this to people. Do you think people are going to be more like aware of physical contact and not shake hands, or do you think it's going to be like over the top and everybody's just hugging?
No, I think everyone's for sure gonna hesitate. I think they are like because I don't think the social distancing thing is gonna end right away. I think it's gonna come in waves, and I think smaller things will open up first. Like even I'm supposed to be doing some festivals later this year, comedy festivals, and one of them is like a gala. There's gonna be like thousands of people there, and I'm just like, how are we gonna go from like not even being allowed to like be on the same sidewalk to like literally all sitting on top of each other, licking each other's like faces in a comedy festival? Like, really does not seem like it's a possibility. But I feel like people are gonna be so, at least for like the first couple of months back, everyone's gonna be like, oh, maybe we'll just like Air 5, or like they're gonna do Muslim stuff
Yeah,
until
keeping it real halal. That's good.
Yeah, this
totally.
whole thing, I think I saw on your Instagram that you were like, this is real Muslim with like the no interest and the bidet fascination suddenly and like the
Exactly.
washing your hands all the time and the no touching. Like it's
Exactly.
real halal times up in here.
I have a question for you guys. Have any of your friends been violating the social distancing rules? Like you see in their snaps that they're hanging out with other people that they don't live with?
Not in mine. Nobody, I think, is doing it blatantly anyway, where they put it in social
Really?
media. Yeah. Have you?
These
I
are
think
like,
I've seen
honestly, I've been seeing some, and I feel like people snapping like other people breaking social distancing rules is like the new sexting. Like those are sex videos. None of us are supposed to see it, and if you see it, you're like, oh my god, I was not supposed to see that. And this is so haram and illegal. It's
Yeah.
both those things.
Yeah,
So
we did have a situation here in Edmonton where there was like a bunch of like elder Arab uncles in the north side of Edmonton who were basically all violating the social
oh no.
distancing norms, and they were like getting together, play cards, and like something
Oh
like
god.
20 plus members got COVID out of that group because they just
No.
refused to social distance. So like the imam of like the north side mosque had to like release a video being like, please stay home. Like this is dangerous, illegal, and like against Islam. So just pay attention. But
Oh
yeah,
my,
it's
wow, he said against Islam. He
yeah,
spoke on behalf of God.
I
He's
know.
really doing God's work.
I know. He's making claims out here. You got to.
Wow. Okay, first of all, how many headlines do you think we're going to see in Ramadan that are like 37 Muslim men arrested for praying Tarawih together?
Oh man, I could see
I
it.
hope zero, but man, I don't know.
There's
Yeah.
some wild times. There's some wild times. I mean, even
Yeah.
again, this is crazy. I'm giving Edmonton a bad name right now, but it's okay.
Yeah, bro, what are you
There's
doing?
another mosque in the city, which I'll leave anonymous, which for like 10 minutes tried raffling off Tarawih spots during Ramadan. They were like,
What?
enter, donate $50 to the mosque and put your name in the hat to be one of 10 people who are allowed to pray Tarawih per day in order to
No,
keep
stop.
social distance. And then, yeah, they got in so
Ooh.
much trouble from like the general population that within like an hour they took it down. We will leave
Oh
that. We will
man.
leave that mosque's name anonymous. But
Wow.
that's
Wow.
crazy.
That's such like back home bargaining mentality.
It's
Like
it's
it's
nuts.
like figure out what's the least like the least illegal thing, like what's on the borderline between like illegal and like, jail, jail and what's like socially permissible, and then just exploit it to the maximum monetary gain. Like that's such a back home thing to do.
It's not the best.
Oh my goodness.
But
yeah, it is very interesting though how like, I mean, I get it. Like, it's like, especially with Ramadan coming up, like, it's very much a sense of community that people are missing.
Yeah.
That's like exasperated by the fact that is not like Ramadan is already like community on steroids, like
exactly
physical time spent together. But yeah, it's just, man, like this is bigger than all of us. We've got to listen to the doctors and stuff. And it just kind of sucks that it sucks for everybody. But yeah, it's kind of
my dad,
unfortunate how.
No, it's so true. My dad sent this video in our WhatsApp group that was like an anti-vaxxer video.
Oh god!
And I know. And my brother commented, he's like, "Dad's gonna come out of this wearing a mega hat." And then, and then my dad was like, "It's a 28-minute long video, and you responded before it was 28 minutes." I was like, "Dad, nobody's gonna listen to a friggin' anti-vax video." But also, he's like so behind. Like, isn't that such an old conspiracy? Like, wait till he finds out about, like, 5G and stuff.
You'd be surprised, though. Like, Djokovic, like the tennis player, he did, like, a Q&A yesterday with his fans, and he said that if they have to get vaccinated in order to return to tennis, he's not going to do it. He's, like, super against vaccinations, which is another reason why Rafael Nadal is better. But yeah, no, that's crazy world we live in.
Yeah,
with a lot of interesting opinions. But
yeah, it's such an odd time. Speaking of which, given the weirdness of the time, what's like some of the stuff that you're missing most about your normal life?
Man, it's so weird because like I really like this life, but then there's a part of me that's like, oh, I miss the socializing. I miss my family a lot. But I am gonna quarantine with my parents, and my brothers live with them in Ramadan. So, which was like a tough decision for me to make because my roommate is like here all alone by herself, and I was like, oh, I don't want to leave her, but also I'm gonna leave her. Like I was just like, I'm just gonna do it. And then I told her, I was like, it's either we get a kitten or I'm gonna leave you and move in with my parents.
Like, you get a kitten?
No, she was like, don't give me an ultimatum like that. I was like, all right. I'm like, literally, I am every trash man that I complain about. I became that. And then, yeah, but like, it's just so gonna be so strange, like not being able to go over to my mom's place, like on the first iftar of Ramadan. Like she always does such a huge like iftar and stuff like that. So I was like, man, I need to go, and then it'll be the only thing that's like making it like as normal as possible for me. Even though I'm gonna miss my like extended family members, like my sisters and their kids and stuff, but that's definitely something I miss, like the socializing, like the brunching. And guys, I'm such a like in-person kind of a person. Like anytime a friend of mine wants to meet or talk or whatever, like for me, I'm just always like, let's do in person. I would much rather in person than over the phone, than texting or anything like that. I spend most of my time meeting people in person. Same with like shows. Like I really miss shows. Like it's all about like the audience interaction and, you know, how you perform on stage. Like even though I'm doing these videos on Instagram, like it's not the same because there's no like real-time feedback, and I won't know how anything holds up until I try it on stage. Yeah, so I really miss that. And even with like dating and stuff, like I was like, I would never do long distance. I would never talk to anyone. Like even dating, I'm like, within 5 seconds, I'm like, let's just meet, because I'll figure out 7 million things through meeting versus like, you know, texting forever or like talking on the phone forever, right? So it's like and now joke's on me, everyone is long distance dating.
So now true. Are you changing the standards? You're like long distance, that's okay? Like texting people?
No, I'm just gonna leave dating altogether. That's literally me. Like I was looking for any excuse just to delay this. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. So it's like those things. Yeah. How about you guys? What do you guys miss?
Oh, I mean, just normalcy, I think. Routine, being able to go outside whenever you want to. I'm like a massive hockey fan too, so I miss that a lot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You're like the nicest guest. Nobody has asked
Yeah,
us
I
the
know, right?
questions.
Oh my
I'm like
goodness.
unprepared. I'm like, what? How do I feel? Oh my god. Yeah, no, I think I similarly, like, I miss just being like I'm working from home and I just don't have a home office, so like my body is hurting
Oh my
all the
god.
time because like nothing is the right height, and like I've
Yes.
tried to bring as much work stuff as I could home, but like I miss being able to like leave to go to work and then come back home and I'm not working, and I miss yoga where I could like fix my body and
Oh,
all that stuff.
yes.
I literally have realized, though, similarly, that I definitely need a cat because my mom is visiting right now. She's been here for a while, just like from Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't have her, like, I'd be going insane. But even just like, I think just that, and like another living being that's not a plant in my home would be like so
Yes. Absolutely. And like the biggest deterrent for me with getting a pet before was that they're so vulnerable in the beginning and they need you to be there 24/7. They need lots of attention and they need you to be physically present for like the first couple of months. And I'm like, that's literally
nice.
what we're all doing right now, like whether we like it or not. So this would be
Yeah.
like a perfect time,
Time
like
to
to
build your
introduce them
bonds.
in.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you alluded to this before a little bit, but like in terms of how you miss being on stage in order to get that audience feedback for your comedy. But have you found that being online and the fact that everybody right now is literally online looking for things to do and get content, have you found that it's easier to reach more people with your comedy during the quarantine, or is it just a really challenging time altogether?
No, that's actually a really interesting point. I all of a sudden like my followers doubled ever since I started putting videos up during the quarantine. Yeah, it's like so weird because I posted this one video about this guy that I met on Minder, and I met him like way back in like end of October. So this whole thing went down like it completely ended in beginning of January, right? And then I just turned him into a set, I think like end of February or like beginning of March. No, I would say end of February. And then I performed it at a few shows. Literally white people could not give a single F. They were just like, yeah, like welcome to dating. Like we got bigger problems to deal with, like alcoholism and like, people like fraud and all these other things. And I'm out here being like, I talked to a boy who was talking to two other girls. And so then they just like could not care less. And then I was like, all right, I guess this content sucks. And then I put it up online and like all the Muslims found it and were like, oh, she is our new queen. I was like, that's so crazy. I didn't realize, I guess, but they're the audience that would relate to this most, and they're the least demographic that would show up to like a comedy show at a comedy bar, right?
Mm.
So yeah, so my reach has been a lot more now, just given like Instagram and the videos I'm doing and stuff like that. But with online shows, they're also cool because like people will find you on your like social media after the show and stuff, but it's still not the same. Like I've done a few Zoom shows. It's the same if I like minimize my screen and look at all the other faces at the exact second that I say a joke. Like I have to see like, did everyone's faces just suddenly break into a smile? Okay, this is a laugh. Like I'm literally out here doing like a programming code, but like through what I'm observing. And if there's a delay, then I sometimes can't tell. Like which joke, which like minor mannerism thing, like are they laughing at? So, yeah, those
Another reason why high speed internet is super important
Yeah.
are right.
for those reaction
You like
times.
I
stop and
know.
ask for feedback. Like, wait, did you laugh at this
Yeah.
part or that
Wait,
part?
what did you think? Yeah.
Exactly. But I can see sometimes when people are typing like and they like if there's like suddenly an influx of like LOLs or whatever, then I'm like, okay, they liked this one. So it's not like completely dead, the comedy, but it's still not like even what is funny online is so different than what's funny on stage. Like online they pick up on subtleties and they pick up on certain things or whatever. Uh even if like you're exaggerated funny online, they like that. But on stage, like it's such a specific kind of like comedy that works or that doesn't work. Even like on Twitter, like sometimes if like a tweet has to be just like basic enough, but also just like unique enough to like go viral. Do you know what I mean? But and each social media platform has like something different in which you can be funny. So like, and it doesn't necessarily translate well from each. So I don't know. There's like it's gonna be interesting going back, but I'm also learning about like putting myself out there, and I feel like that's not something I can fight for so long because like we are, you know, an internet world. So I feel like I just have to get with the times and like do these things.
And you kind of mentioned, like you said that, you know, there's a couple differences between doing the comedy online and doing it at shows and stuff. But mainly like your comedy is very much about your personal experiences and about your life. And as you mentioned, like there's not a ton of Muslim women such as yourself who are attending your comedy shows in bars and stuff. So are you writing are you starting to differentiate at all the comedy that you would do on your Instagram, for example, versus like what you would perform at a show? Like, or is it all the same across the board?
Yeah. So Instagram, most of my followers are, I would say, Muslims. So I could talk about like I can even say like Arabic things, and sometimes like people understand it or whatever. But on stage, it has to be very much like white palatable. Like white people have to be able to understand it. It has to be like interesting and unique for them. Because otherwise like it's not. Yeah, and then some things it's like uh so online basically I know that people will relate a lot more to like Muslim references and Muslim jokes and stuff, but like online or on stage they want it to be more like either educational or like universally relatable.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So like what would you say you did at last year's Moscow show? Because our mayor, Don Iveson, who's a white gentleman, was like losing his mind at your jokes.
Really?
Like he thought you were so funny, and he like because we were he was sitting in this one section where the board was also sitting. So yeah, he was like losing his mind. He thought you were so
Really?
funny.
Oh,
And so I'm just like, is he just like super in tune with the
Yeah,
Muslims, which
if you
like we
want
kind of
a
already
key to the
know?
city, you could probably make that happen.
Yeah. If you want to
100%.
call him Don
100%.
Iverson.
Wow. This is like the biggest honor. Um,
Award-winning comedian right here.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's going
exactly.
straight on my bio. Are you kidding me? Has the
He
key to
has
the
a
city of
sweater and
Edmonton.
a key to the city.
I would say okay, so that content was what I would perform in shows minus one of the bits, which is the one that I did about reputation, like how basically like if a girl's single, like they'll always, you know, like aunties will trash talk her, but then when she gets married, it's like that same thing they were trash talking becomes like the superpower that got her married or whatever. So that
Yeah.
I tried it a couple times in white audiences. They don't really feel it. Unless it's like a speech, like it's a like a talk that I'm giving about my life, then it works. But that one is I usually only do in Muslim audiences. Um and then and then I didn't do a lot of the jokes that I do for non-Muslim audiences that Muslim audiences would like really cringe. I think I tried to do it in the after party and everyone was like, Lord. But then also in the after party, like a lot of people couldn't hear what I was saying or whatever. But like it's stories about like when I got a dick pic on Instagram and like stuff like that. Like I'm like, I can't, this is not family friendly for like Muslim audiences. So it was like it's kind of like the Venn diagram of what I think could work with like both.
No, that makes
Gotcha.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, I want to take a bit of a step back if we can, just so that people who maybe aren't as familiar with you get a sense of who you are. I mean, you are an engineer by day. So how did this all come about? Like, how did your comedy career come about? How did you decide that, you know what, I'm just going to go for it? Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
your background.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I did engineering for my undergrad. I did electrical and biomedical engineering, and then I, like every Muslim human in the entire planet, studied for my MCAT. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a doctor, of course. And then I remember, like when I was when I was when I was actually like applying for university, I was like, okay, I'm gonna like apply for health science, or I'm gonna do like life science or whatever. And then my dad was like, no, just do engineering, just do engineering. And then he's like, after you're done engineering, you can apply for med school. And if you get in, great, you're in med school. And if you don't, then you're a failure and you're an engineer.
I was gonna say, I'm
And
like,
I was like,
engineer is like a pretty killer backup plan for med school.
right?
Mhm.
But then he was like, you're just insufficient, and you'll be an engineer. I was like, okay, thanks, Dad. Also, how you know we're not, like, if we had white parents, they'd be like, oh my God, just any program, amazing. Like, you're following your heart. Like, do you know what I mean? Versus like friggin' our parents are like a hell to the no. But anyway, so I did engineering, and then after that, I was studying for my MCAT, and guys, I don't know what it was, but every single time I was studying for my MCAT, and I took it a couple times, I like my body just like emotionally, like physically, mentally, everything was just like would just go whack. Like I was like, I'm not into this. Like I would develop like extreme stress. And like it was just such a like dark time in my life, and I hated doing it. And I knew also, like, I think my sister would ask me, like, and I had a friend also who would always ask me, like, why are you trying to do medicine? Why are you trying to do medicine? Like, it seems like it's just a path that you're trying to follow that you don't really care about. And then my sister sent me this article that said that a lot of people are applying for med school because it's like a safety blanket, where it's like a career choice that is, first of all, has a lot of prestige and is like financially stable, and it's just like always going to be in need. So it's kind of like a crutch, like it's kind of like something that they're doing out of like fear and safety. And when I read that, I was like, oh my God, this is so true. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if I keep trying for med school, like let's say for another like few years, whatever, and then I get in, like, and I finish, because obviously like medicine takes like a whole other like 10 years, like at the end, if you're going to specialize, all that stuff. And I was like, I will complete my life, and then I'll be like, okay, there, like I lived this life, now let me go back and live a whole other life, like in the arts. And I think like it was at that point that I was like, okay, I don't think that like you don't get multiple lives. Like
Yeah.
I don't think that this is actually what you want to do. You know what I mean? Um, but I was still too afraid to like admit it. And I think I always knew, like, at the back of my mind, like that's something okay, this is what I felt. I felt like if I did medicine, if I was actually a doctor, then I would be settling given what skills and strengths God gave me.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
No, totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I was like, because if let's say I had a different set of skills, or like a limited set of skills or whatever, then maybe that would be the best thing for me to do. But I was like, I feel like you're meant for more. Like I feel like, not to take anything away from like medicine or doctors or
Meant
anything
for
like that.
something
Like I'm like,
different. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, like you could, like, it's just we think, I like, and a lot of doctors I know in the Muslim community are always saying, like, in order for Muslims to advance, like we need more Muslims in the arts, we need more whatever, like, and so I kept thinking about that. And then I started my master's in engineering because I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, just gonna buy myself more time. And so then I started doing my master's at University of Toronto. And then I my sister took me, I think, to one, like, the book launch of Zarqa Nawaz.
Yeah.
She's the writer and producer of, yeah, of Little Mosque on the
Of
Prairie.
course,
And
Mosquers
Yeah.
former judge, by the way.
yes, I'm sure. Yeah, I was like, yeah, y'all for sure worked with her.
Like year
Um,
two, I think, way back in the day.
Amazing. Yeah, she's so great. And so so I went to her book launch, and then my sister was like, I'm inviting her over to my house for dinner, because my sister was actually related to her through marriage at the time. So my sister's ex-husband basically is Zarka's first cousin. So
Nice.
yeah, so that was basically so my sister invited her over for dinner and stuff. So I go over to my sister's place, and then I see Zarka there, and obviously I'm like hella starstruck. And then I go up to her, and I was like, oh, I have like one of two. I tell her that I'm like in biomed engineering, and I was like, I have one of two dreams in my whole entire life. Like one of them is either that I be like a trauma surgeon in Gaza, and the other one is that I become like the first like Muslim Mindy Kaling of Hollywood. And then she looks at me and she's like, I think you should just stick with engineering. And I was like, oh, ouch.
Option
I was
3,
like,
yeah.
yeah, literally. I was like, okay. And then the rest of the night, I was like, whatever. I already lost her. Nothing left to lose. So I might as well just be myself. And so then the rest of the evening, me and my sister knew it. I was just so freaking funny. So we're just sitting there cracking so many jokes, and we start telling Zarka all the stories about suitors that my dad has brought me, and one of them was just fresh at the time, and I was so traumatized. And people think that I'm like saying comedy, like, and it's funny, and I'm like, no, I'm really going through this thing. Like it's like this is a cry for help. And so I was like telling her a story, and then she's just sitting there like listening. And then the next day I was dropping her off to some lecture that she was giving. And then she's like, you need to do stand-up comedy. And I was like, me? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, are you just going to like cast me in a movie? Like, how does this work, right? And then she
like, I'm
was
in
like,
the business now. That's
totally.
amazing.
I was like, well, I don't have to do anything. Like, she's just going to call them up. Finally, I have been discovered. And
Yeah.
and then she was like, no, you should do stand-up comedy. I was like, A'udhu billah. I would not wish that upon my enemy. Why would I do it? Literally, the only stand-up comedy I'd ever seen at that point was like friggin' MSA stand-up comedy.
Oh, no.
And it would be like, you know, oh, like the lota, this and that. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I hate this. I would be wanting, like, I would be cringing while watching. So I was like, okay, no, I don't know, like whatever, I'll see. I believe this was in February, okay? Then of 2016. Then she comes back to town in March of 2016 for the Muslim Awards for Excellence gala. And then they brought a stand-up comedian. And I remember like when I would see like stand-up comedians or stuff like that, like it would terrify me and I wouldn't want to think about it too much. Like I would literally shut down those thoughts because I was like, no, like you don't want to open up this floodgate, like it's too scary. It's like I was like, don't do it. And then so when I would see like something like Muslim stand-up comedian, this and that, like I would just look away or I would just leave the room. Like I didn't want to, like, I don't know, it was just like I don't want to be like reminded of a part of myself that I was shutting out. And so then Zarka like found me at the gala and was like, and she was like, you need to, like, literally picked me up and like threw me at the stand-up comedian and was like, and she was like,
Is she that strong?
yeah, like oh my god, she she literally was like, talk to her, and she told the other stand-up comedian to do that. And then the other
Who
stand-up
was it?
comedian, her name's Noor Hadidi, and
Okay.
she's like a good friend of mine now. And at the time, like, so Noor was just like sitting down, and she was really nice. Like I was like, okay, I don't know, like I want to start comedy, but like I'm really scared. Like I don't drink alcohol and I don't swear and like all these things. And then after that, she was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I don't do those things either. And she sent me like a couple of links to like read over and stuff like that, which I had already Googled. Like I started Googling like how to be a stand-up comedian and like open mics in Toronto. Like I was so nervous. And then that was in March. And then I was like, okay. And then Zarka comes back to town in August and she goes like, did you do anything? And I was like, no. And she's like, you know what your problem is? She's like, you don't have any grit. You have the talent, but you don't have any grit. And she's like, people like you are not going to make it far. She
Damn.
was like,
Holy.
Damn.
Some tough luck. Tough love.
The
Right.
sassiest fairy godmother.
she was so brutal. She was like, you are like my husband talks about people like you all the time. Like, she's like, she was literally like, I have like some talent, but I make up with it with like my grit and this and that. And she's like, you're like, she was giving it to me so like tough. And I was like, you know what? This is my love language because I come from such a aggressive family. So I was like, yep. I was like, I feel right at home. Thank you. And so then I was like, okay, I'll do it. Like, I just emotionally, like mentally need to get on board. And then I took one of my friends out for brunch, and I told her, I was like, okay, I think I want to like try stand-up comedy. And that was like the first time that I like spoke it out loud to someone else. And then she was like such an enabler. It was an excellent person to tell. She was like, oh my God, this is great, blah, blah, blah. She's like, let's watch. I had never even watched a Netflix special, like a comedy special. So she's like, come over, let's watch one. So I went over to her place. We watched one. And then
which one?
Ali Wong's, I think Baby Cobra.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's dope.
It was so good. Yeah. And then Trevor Noah was coming into town. So she's like, let's go see him. So that was the first stand-up live show that I did. And then, and that was that I saw, and that was like so fun. And then I was like, okay, like, I can notice some trends that they do. Like, I feel like I can probably do some of that. Like, it's not too difficult. And then she took me to go see our first live show in Toronto. So it was like a really small show. I had like stalked the venue on Instagram before, and I was like, okay, like this looks cool. There was like 4 people in attendance. I was like, this is perfect. So we go to the show, we watch it, and then I get up, and then we were leaving, and then I go to the producer. I'm like, hi, can I get a spot on your show? He's like, have you ever done comedy before? I was like, no. And he's like, okay, fine.
He's like, perfect.
Really?
Yeah.
He was like, not happy about it, but he's like, whatever. And then he was like, okay, just add me on Facebook, whatever. And then I chose a date for a show that was like, not like gave me enough time to write, but like not too much time that I would like, get cold feet and start to cancel. So and then I was like leaving, and then he's like, where are you going? I was like, I have a curfew, and we like ran out. And then oh my God, when I think back to those times, like that curfew was real. And then my friend reminded me the other day, she was like, I remember when we were at Trevor Noah, we were just like still new friends, so you couldn't tell me, but your mom kept calling you and she kept texting you really passive aggressive hadiths and texts.
That's next level.
I know. I was like, I have like literally shut out those memories. I was like, I do not associate with that trauma. I was like, literally. But and then yes, and I tried stand-up for the first time ever, November 4th of 2016. And remember how I told you there was only 4 people in the show the first time I went?
Yeah.
This time there were 60 people.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was literally like sold out. People were standing, and it was such a great show. And I performed, and everyone loved it. And I remember like when I was performing, people were laughing. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, I didn't practice your laughter.
So it's worked into my set.
Yeah, literally. And then after that, like people came up to me and they're like, you have to keep doing it. It's so good. So then I went to to Second City Toronto after that. I took a stand-up course there, and that was so fun because they force you to write so much every week, and they hold you accountable. They make you go up at the beginning of every class in front of everyone and like test out your material. That's like so rough. And then they give you a lot of feedback about it and stuff too. So that for me was like really, really great. And then we did a end of like semester show on the main stage, and there was like 120 people there, and that's when I performed, and my friend took a video, and then that video kind of like went viral when my sister-in-law posted it. So I was like, wow, everyone is like really feeling this. And then everything just like started to blow up. Like City TV interviewed me, and Globe and Mail, and there was just like a whole bunch of stuff happening. And then the Muslim community like really got in on it. So it just like grew really, really quickly. But yeah, that's how it started.
Wow. Have you found that over that time, like your we talked a little bit about this, about how you've kind of started to differentiate your content between like your more Muslim audience and your non-Muslim audience. But has your general outlook also shifted, like your everyday perspective on life, now that you're thinking more through like a comedic lens, or is it more so you've always just kind of had this approach towards your life? Like what's that been like?
That's so interesting. Yeah, so basically like I think most of my comedy is based off of like rants and stuff that I like I just want to entertain or like basically like story tell to my friends. So I think now like I am starting to look more at things that I say that are really funny, and then sometimes people will say like, "Oh, you should turn this into a bit, turn this into a bit." So it's mostly people in my life telling me to do that. Like my roommate says that to me like literally every day. She's like, "Write that down, write this down, say that." And like other comedians that I talk to, or I like, because I'm also friends with them. If I make a joke or whatever, they'll be like, "That's a bit." That's it. Like, and a part of me kind of hates that. Like, now I always have to think that way, and I have to like almost capitalize on anything I say. Like, it's almost like, is there anything left about me that's not like being commodified? But then at the same time, I'm like, whatever, might as well do it. Like, I'm in this position, right? Um, and then also, I remember like when I feel like last year and the year before, like I spent so much time just living, like I never really developed any content. And then this year I got into a bunch of festivals, and they were like asking for a lot of content, unique content, because they're all CBC tapings. So they're like, you can't repeat the same content. So I was like, oh man, I need to like really develop a lot of material. And I was like, all right, time to turn these men into money. Like, it's gotten to this point, so we're gonna do it. So then that's when I finally sat down and like turned that guy into a set. And then there's so many others before him that I need to turn into sets. And like,
Oh man,
there's so many, yeah. And even like my sister's whole like relationship story and everything that happened and whatever, like there's so many jokes that I make about it to my own friends. And it was actually that guy that I was seeing. He was like listening to me like tell my friends like the whole story. And he's like, the worst part about this is she can't even turn it into material. He's like, she can't even turn it into material because it like implicates her own family. I was like, oh man. But then here's the thing, there's like a sweet period where everything is like really sensitive, and then afterwards I get like the green light to be like, yeah, sure, you can make jokes about this. So I feel like I'm getting there soon, and I'll be able to like make jokes about a lot of things that I'm currently holding off on.
Like enough time will have passed.
do you try to get
Yeah,
clearance?
exactly.
Like, do you try to make sure that the people who may recognize that they are the subject of your joke are good with it, or are you just like, nope, this is my experience, I'm just gonna tell it?
It depends who it is. Like if it's my sister, then yeah, like I obviously care about that relationship, so I'll ask her like, and she's such an attention whore and literally is dying to be a celebrity. She literally made me write a set about her divorce. I was like, do you
Oh
know
wow.
that you could just go to an open mic and do this for your own self? Like it's not cathartic for me. It's like you're the one who needs to do this. But I wrote it and I sent it to her and she loved it. And then she got really sensitive about one joke. She's like, don't put this one in there. And I was like, girl, nobody's performing this. This is for you in your living room. Like, I'm not gonna do this. It's not my life. But yeah, like if there's ever if there's like jokes that I want to make about her life and her situation with respect to like me, I have to ask her permission, but for the most part she's super compliant. It's just like she'll be like, okay, wait, like, or I don't want my kids to hear this or whatever, so I'll have to like abide by that. But if it's a guy from my past, I'm sorry. You literally get no say. You ruined my life. You caused me trauma, so I will absolutely turn you into material. You know what? The worst men are the ones who cause you trauma, and you can't even turn them into a material. That is the absolute worst. That's
True.
actually my ex. He like caused me the most damage, like my OG ex. I only have one ex. Literally, I talk about as if I have 700. I literally have just one. It's like one, but like from different angles. But like anyway, so like my like OGX, like he is so freaking insecure, so sensitive. If I ever share any information, even if it's not like you can never trace it back to him, or like it's not identifying in any way, he still is like super sensitive. that's actually what upsets him the most. Like, so basically what I realized is everybody I've ever spoken to or like dated for 5 minutes or like 5 years has my Twitter as their homepage.
Oh
Okay?
God.
They literally see everything that I post. Okay? And it's so annoying because I blocked them, but they stalk me from the browser. And you cannot block an IP address. Okay, I looked into it. I'm so annoyed.
Funny.
And like so one of them like reached out to me and he was like and then I got so mad that I didn't respond and I just went on Twitter and I ranted passive aggressively because that's who I am as a person. And then he immediately responds to the message that he sent me, basically addressing like that tweet. And I was like, do you have a life? Like literally. And then I just like communicated with him through Twitter and like did not respond to his message. And then this other guy, the one from the video, literally called me after the whole thing ended, and he started like quoting all of my tweets that him and his coworker went through. I was like, are you guys okay? Is anybody okay? Nobody hides stalking anymore, you know? Like, it's not like the good old days where people are discreet about their creepiness. Nope.
Hey man, he just has a lot of time on his hands now, you know?
True. With the quarantine, that's probably, yeah. I'm really grateful that none of my exes have social media, so I can't even stalk, which makes it unfair because I'm like, I am literally CNN and they are friggin' the FBI. So whatever.
Oh, that's too funny. So you mentioned like a few like really really supportive relationships that you have in terms of like your sister and a lot of your friends who encouraged you.
Yeah.
And so that's wicked that you have like really good social supports. But how do you balance working as an engineer with doing comedy? And is there a hope that one day you would be able to do comedy full time?
Yeah. If you would have asked me this question last year or yeah, probably last year, I would have been like, oh, you did, true. No, I mean like maybe like early last year, I would have been like, oh, I don't know, like I'm not comfortable in like answering that, like it's really scary for me and stuff. But I think now I've gotten to a point where I'm like, absolutely, I think comedy is the ultimate goal. And as of now, like, alhamdulillah, 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 I'm so lucky that I work at such a supportive place. So even though my job, like, it is like from 9 to 5, and I have to, like, there's a lot that goes on there, and there's like so many different aspects of my job and stuff like that. It still has such a great work-life balance. Like there's not much overtime or anything. Like we do have company phones and stuff, so we are expected to be like to sometimes work like off hours and stuff. But for the most part, first of all, everybody there knows about my comedy and they love it. Some of them have even come out to shows. And when I first got hired there, my manager and my coworker came up to me and they're like, so we saw some of your YouTube clips and we loved it. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, these people love me for who I am. I was like, this is what I want in a man. Because my my mom would always tell me like, if these companies find out what you're doing, they're never gonna hire you. And if these men find out what you're doing, they're never gonna marry you. And then I found a company that loves me for who I am. And I was like, I can find that in a man, right? And
Yes,
and so yeah, they're so great about it. And they also
that's so
like,
wicked.
yeah, they're so sweet about it. And then they also like they're so supportive, like in terms of my vacation days and making things work. Like when I did the taping for CBC Gem at JFL Northwest in February, it was such a last minute booking, and I told my boss about it. He had just come back from like a really long trip, and I had like no vacation days. I was gonna have to take like extra time off and stuff. And he was like, I told him, I was like, yeah, I got into JFL Northwest. He's like, JFL? He's like, that's such a big deal. He's like, good for you. I'm so proud of you. You're doing so well. He's like, absolutely. Like, we'll figure it out, whatever, whatever. He's so supportive. They're literally angels. And so, yeah, like, it makes such a big difference with me. And I think they know, that, like, even the administrator at work, like, her and I have, like, such a, a close relationship. Like we send each other like show recommendations and like this and that. We discuss shows and whatever. So I like tell her about like any writing I do and this and that. And I think like they kind of know like the projects that I'm working on and stuff. So I feel like they would be so supportive and they would know that this is where like what. And the senior director actually at my job followed me on Instagram recently, and she sent me an email about the Minder video, and she was like, you're so talented. She's like, keep going, like you actually truly are like gifted, whatever. And I was like, oh my god, I'm literally crying because all of these people are like the parents I never had. And let me tell you something, like white people believing in you, like even though the people that I work with are people of color, but a lot of them are white, and in like Hollywood, when I go to LA, like white people believing in you is just a whole other type of validation. I was like, this is these are like the successful people in the arts, like they know what they're talking about, right? So it's definitely something.
That's too funny. That's too funny. Not to change gears too drastically, but that's exactly what I'm going to do now.
Light hairpin.
Yeah, so you started these I guess posts called Therapy Thursdays, which can sometimes involve sharing deeply personal stories. So, what made you do that? What made you think that that was something that needs to be talked about and discussed?
Mm-hmm. So basically, in my own personal growth, I think that, so first of all, I wanted to say this earlier, but I forgot. But one of the biggest things that was holding me back from starting comedy, as horrible as it sounds, was literally I was afraid that if I started comedy, that my crush at the time would not be down for it, or like it was fully an unreciprocated crush, okay? But I thought that that guy at the time would be like, no, this is too liberal, like it's not wifey material, like this and that. So that literally held me back for months. Like it was what made me be like, no, I don't want to do it. Like if it's between like his, reciprocation and comedy, I'm gonna choose his reciprocation. And literally, after like it never came, I was like, all right, like screw this, I'm gonna start living my life. And then as soon as you start the comedy, then that's when everybody starts to be interested. That's when everybody starts to like get on board and stuff, right? And it's like so annoying. But I remember like when I first started comedy, it was such a difficult time for me, especially when everything blew up like and picked up, and my dad found out and my family, and it was so dramatic that I had like such intense, like insane spiritual guilt. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, if this is right or wrong. And my parents were like my only source of like spiritual validation. And so losing that was so terrifying for me. It was so anxiety inducing. And so I was like, okay, but I was still kind of able to cope. Like I was like, whatever, it's fine. Like, I kept trying to find validation from other people. Like I kept trying to find validation from, like let's say my like other imams or like religious leaders in the community, or I was trying to find like validation from like guys I was talking to or whatever. Like I would literally just be like, anybody, like tell me. And it was such a weird thing because it was like, if I did find the validation, first of all, I never found it. And if I didn't find it, I was like, whatever, I'm gonna keep looking. And if I did find the validation, I would be like, no, you guys are hypocritical, you're not holding me accountable to the same standards that you're holding yourself accountable. And it was just like I was just not in a good place. But it was fine. Like I was able to like sweep it under the rug, whatever. And then later I
healthy.
yeah, like I feel like that's what a lot of us do though, right? Yeah. And so I got to this place where whatever, I was like, okay, it's fine. Like, but then certain things would flare it up. Like if I go to a show and then like something really racy happens or whatever with other performers, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to hell. Like this is crazy, whatever. And then I like got into my relationship, and that just like exploded everything. Like all of the cognitive dissonance and like the lack of self-trust and the severe low self-worth and like the confusion about my values and who I am as a person, like literally just exploded. Like I was like, I don't know, everything I thought I knew is not the same. And it's like, did people pick and choose what's like halal and haram? And like it was just like so like mind-blowing for me, like I didn't really know how to place a lot of things, and I felt like I male identified so much. Like it was kind of like, okay, I'll just do whatever he thinks is okay or what he thinks is fine, whatever. Like I started to sort of get into that like toxic cycle again. And then whenever I would find discrepancies, because it's like if your moral code is just like following someone else's and you have not come to those decisions on your own, then you're bound to be disappointed by like their hypocrisy or like their lack of like if they ever make any mistakes or something like that, or their lack of consistency, right? So basically that caused me so much anxiety, you guys. Like I remember when I was in university, people would always say stuff like, oh, I have so much anxiety that I can't eat. And I was like, oh my god, poor you, like it must suck to be you. Like I was just like making fun of them, like I was like, can't relate, like what kind of anxiety is that? But then after I like went through this, I was like, oh my god, my anxiety is like through the roof. I couldn't eat for weeks. Like there was no room in my stomach for food because they were already occupied by like butterflies. Like I was so, yeah, it was like so bad. And then I got to a place where my anxiety like just hit an all-time high where I never had a suicidal thought in my life, but like there was one glimpse of a moment where I was like, I don't deserve to be alive. Like it wasn't like I want to end my life or anything. It was just like I don't deserve to live. And it was like, and it was at that moment that I was like, oh my god, this is terrifying and I don't think this is normal. And I was like, okay, I think you need to go to therapy. And at that point, I had already spoken to a friend of mine. She's also a comedian, Muslim in Toronto. Her name's Hodo Harsi. So she's like, girl, you need to go to therapy. And she gave me the contact information of a therapist. So she was like kind of like the gateway to me and like my healing. So then at that moment, I hit up that therapist and I was like, I need to make an appointment with you like immediately in 5 seconds right now. And the therapist was like, okay, my earliest availability is in like 6 weeks. And I was like, I wasn't even there. Literally the worst. Friggin' anyways, and then so by the time I went to therapy, like my anxiety and everything had kind of calmed down a lot. But I literally went into therapy being like, I don't know who I am. Like I literally don't trust myself as a human being. Like I don't know what's right and wrong. I was like, did you guys ever read Lord of the Flies?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. So I literally went to her and I was like, I would be Jack. And she was like, are you okay? I was like, no, that's why I'm here. And then basically like I guess the reason why I went into therapy was because of that relationship, but like what I found out in therapy was wild about myself. Like just, what was shaping me, gave names to so many things that I was feeling and so many dynamics that were going on around me that I didn't know had names. She like introduced me to the concept of codependence and like boundaries and like families that cross them and shame and how like a lot of us have it, especially like in our communities, and how it drives like almost everything that we do and like our defense mechanisms, whatever. And it was just so like it just like was the only thing that I was interested in for like a year. I got so obsessed with it. I literally would go back to work. I journaled every single therapy session I ever went to. I wrote down the entire thing afterwards. And I spoke to multiple therapists in 1 year. At one point I was like seeing like 3 therapists at the same time. I was like to my friend, I was like, watch me make therapy unhealthy. It's gonna happen. And people would ask me like, how's comedy and how's work doing? I was like, yeah, I mean, they're going, but what I'm really doing is therapy. Like it was my whole life. And because I think at the root of it, I thought that if I was able to like heal and fix myself, that I would be able to like go back to that relationship. I would be able to like get him back or something. I think that's what was driving me, or like that I would be worthy enough to like be with. But then through therapy was where I even learned the concept of like acceptance and self-acceptance first and foremost. Like you can't be here because you're trying to like prove your worth. You already are worthy. Like everybody has innate worth. So that for me was like yeah, like, but so it took me months to get over that relationship. I would say like 6 months. And it was still like a lot of like back and forth, and so much emotional turmoil. Like I think I cried like almost every single day until like after 6 months. And then I remember it was like me, like my therapist. Here's the thing about therapy. You're literally paying them. So if you want to talk about the same thing for 6 months straight, guess what? That's what we're all doing. Okay? Your friends can be like, oh my God, get over him already. Or your friends cannot pick up your calls or whatever. But now your therapist, you're literally paying her. So I think I got to a point where I told her, I was like, I'm only gonna talk about him for 15 minutes. I'm putting on a timer. As soon as the timer goes off, we're never talking about him again. And she was like so impressed. And so then, yeah, so then I did that. And then afterwards, like, I started to like actually get into dating and stuff like that. And then I started to discover like so many more things about myself. But I wasn't just doing the therapy. I was reading all the books that she recommended. I was reading articles about any concepts that I was introduced to. I was watching so many like School of Life videos, which ironically, like my ex is the one who introduced me to that channel on YouTube. And I was just like so fascinated by it because everything was like based in science and it was just so validating. And then it got to a point where like it was the only thing that I could talk to other people about too. And I could like see a lot of things more clearly in like just like relationships with anyone and like dynamics and stuff like that. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people are mesmerized and intrigued by it because it kind of gives them the same level of validation. Like at the root of it is just like human connection and understanding how humans work. So I feel like a lot of people are really drawn to that because it's like what we all have in common. And therapy does not go against faith at all. If anything, it helps you become so much more secure in your beliefs and in your morals. I think what people are afraid of is when they go to therapy, it will basically shatter the illusion of morals that they had because they were just following other people, when it actually makes them start to choose their own morals and they won't know who they are and they won't know, like they'll have to reevaluate everything, and that's really scary for a lot of people. And so I think that's why they think that if you go to therapy you're going to come out like an atheist. It's like, well, then that means that your morals weren't that strong to begin with, like your Islamic morals, for example, right? So it's not necessarily like therapy's fault. Like all therapy's doing is making you actually like go from living a fear-based life to an intent-based life. Like, okay, I am choosing this out of intention and not out of fear that there's nothing else, or that if I don't do this then I'm going to be punished, right? um and I think that I think anyways, Islam, first of all, like Imam Ali said, man yaraf nafsahu yaraf rabbahu, which means whoever knows oneself knows their Lord. And that's literally what therapy does, is helps you learn yourself, helps you grow in self-trust, in self-knowledge. And then also like Islam really, really condemns blind faith. So if you're not actually sitting down and going through your morals and exploring the world and exploring who you are as a human being and what you truly do believe in, then you're just following blind faith. So I don't know at all why people say that therapy and faith can't coexist. If anything, they complement each other.
Hmm. No, that's very well put. I mean, I think generally speaking, there's a bit of a stigma, even more broadly than just the Muslim community. I think a lot of minority communities have a lot of stigma around mental health and going to therapy to seek any sort of guidance or help that you might need. So, I mean, I don't even know if I have a question on this, but I just wanted to give props to you as someone who's in the public face and who's obviously a visible Muslim, to publicly put the work that you've been doing with yourself available to everybody to see, and to promote that this is something that's completely normal, completely something that people should be seeking out, and that it's okay to talk about. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. I think also, like, I was talking to a Muslim psychologist about this yesterday, but which is the concept of spiritual bypass. Like, a lot of people think that anything to do with mental health, like, yeah, it's so taboo and stuff like that. And they also think, for some reason, a lot of times, like, our parents and their generation, they think that if you express emotion that's like not positive, then that means that you are ungrateful to God, or you are just like, you're not a good enough believer. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, so it's almost like it comes from them denying their own emotions. Like, they don't want, like, our parents and stuff, a lot of times they deny their own emotions, and they're like, everything's fine, alhamdulillah, everything's good, alhamdulillah. And then if you tell them, like, I'm not feeling good, or I feel depressed, or I'm not happy, they just, like, cannot handle that. So they're like, no, because they've spent so much time, like, shutting down their own emotions that it causes them a lot of discomfort to see other people then talk about their emotional problems or any mental health issues that they have, right? And so I feel like that's just like a disservice, though. It doesn't help anybody heal, and if you dismiss your emotions, then all it does is control you in other ways. So I think, like, yeah, I think that it's not helpful for anybody to, like, for it to remain a taboo, therapy. And I also think that if you get into the public eye, like, I love to tell people about the struggle and everything, just because it keeps it real in terms of what is actually the human struggle. Like, I don't know, sometimes you see people on social media, and it's just like, oh, this person, like, that they found their husband this way and blah 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 and this and that, and I'm like, do you know that they literally rejected him 3 times? Do you know that, like, literally blah blah blah, like, this and this happened? Like, once you learn that, you're like, oh wow, because then it stops making you feel so bad. Like, if you're like, why are all these people having it so easy, it stops making you feel so bad about how you not having it that easy, right? When you find out that it actually wasn't that easy for everybody else. So
no, thank you so much for your time and for all of the insight. We're getting up to an hour 15. We don't want to take up too much more of your time, but before we do let you go, we have some rapid fire questions for you. Are you down with that?
Oh my god, I'm so bad at this. Yes, let's do it.
No, you'll be fine. Okay, so no right or wrong answers, just the first thing that comes to your mind. Ready?
Okay.
Okay, number 1, horror comedies.
Comedies.
Okay. Favorite cereal?
Oh my god, what's it called? Harvest Crunch.
Okay. Interesting choice. Okay. What's more important for you in a partner, intelligence or humor?
Stop it. Intelligence.
Favorite type of potato?
Fries.
Good choice.
Good answer. Okay. What's the most binge-worthy show on any streaming platform right now?
Oh my god. Fleabag. So freaking amazing.
Nice.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And your most rewatched movie of your whole life?
Okay, for sure, The Matrix.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh, dang, that's a good one.
Yeah. Definitely. Why? What about you guys?
I think mine is a tie between Mean Girls and Mulan.
Oh my god, classic. Mulan is my favorite. Wow.
That's too good. Mine would probably be Remember the Titans or The Dark Knight, one of those two.
Oh, that's a great choice. Absolutely.
Salma was kind enough to sit down with us last year before our event, and unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, the episode did not record. So we got Hamada 100% focused. We have him on camera right now. He's 100% focused on recording this episode, and we shouldn't have any issues whatsoever. Salma, before we let you go, how can people find you and your work?
You can go on my website, salmahindy.com. You can find me on Instagram, salma.hindy. And don't follow me on Twitter, because all I do is tweet about my exes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed that episode. You can find us on all social media platforms by searching Mosquers Film Festival. We'll see you next time. Hear you next time. I need to stop saying see.
We'll hear you next time.
We're
not going to hear anybody.
We'll talk at you next time.
We will.